With this first reading of that Abraham story, I often think to myself, what kind of God did our Jewish ancestors believe in? Can you imagine allowing a mere mortal, even a special one like Abraham, to talk God down from his original plan? How could this puny human attempt to change God's mind about destroying Sodom and Gomorrah? Do you think that our Jewish ancestors were actually chuckling when they told this story? I do. I think so. It's charming, isn't it? A conversation between God and Abraham. It's even humorous in spots. A human being doing deal-making with the Almighty over the fate of humans caught in the most sinful cities on the planet. But actually, weren't they really telling the story all about their wonderful and merciful God, as they show us God and Abraham acting like merchant and customer, haggling in a market over the price of something so very precious? Will you take 50? How about 45? Suppose 30. How about 10? And if God is the one whose merchandise is being haggled over, here's the big question. Why does God then let Abraham win the bargaining at such a low amount? Now, some of you may know this, but I used to negotiate contracts for both the state and the city of New York. I'm going to share a little trade secret with you about negotiations. And this works every single time. It is the number one rule of negotiations. So here it comes. This works whether you're negotiating $1 million contract or you're negotiating who's taking out the garbage tonight. This works all the time. Here it comes. The one who appears to care the most loses the negotiation. Do you know what the second rule is? There is no second rule. That's it. So maybe God loses the bargaining because the humans of Sodom and Gomorrah, sinful as they were, are even more of a concern to God than they were to Abraham. God seems to want to lose these negotiations. God is ready and willing to give in to Abraham's haggling. So I think our ancestors not only chuckled as they told this story, but their jaws must have dropped in awe when they heard it for the first time. What a God we have, so ready to be merciful to the entire population of two of the most huge evil cities for the sake of a few. That's the God that the Jews worship in awe and reverence with passionate commitment and trust. The God of mercy, whose ear is turned towards those who address God. And at today's service, we might let our jaws drop also as we worship that same merciful God in awe and gratitude. Everyone, saint and sinner alike, really can embrace this story. All of us are encouraged by it to boldly pray for God's mercy. You know, so often the Old Testament God is stereotyped into being harsh and on high, distant from us creatures. But Abraham's God is an intimate God who comes close to engage the petitioner and then actually enters into dialogue and lends a sympathetic ear. That's really what prayer is all about, isn't it? It's a conversation with God. This reading matches so well with the theology of Luke's gospel, where the God of prayer and mercy is the key player. As Jesus travels to Jerusalem, he's been instructing his disciples. We've been listening to this over the last bunch of weeks. We heard about all the sacrifices that he asks of his disciples. He's forming them into this total love of God, teaching them to listen to the word and then act on it. 2 weeks ago, we heard the story of the Good Samaritan. And in that parable, the importance of service. And just last week, we found in the Martha-Mary story a bridge between service, which is all about Martha, and prayer, about Mary. This week, we're going to cross that bridge and focus on the importance of prayer. If Abraham could pray even for Sodom and Gomorrah, is there anything or any land, any people, any religion that we should give up on? Who are we to draw the final line of judgment when God himself is so pliable and patient? Like Abraham, Luke's parable of the persistent friend encourages our perseverance. It dares us, gives us great confidence in our prayer. So keep knocking on the Father's door, everybody. Even if initially there seems to be no response, or if we feel like we're being ignored, because we learn from Jesus that we have to be regular in our prayer, in our conversations with God, because that acknowledges our dependence on our Father, our Abba, our Dad. And Jesus, as always, gives us the perfect prayer.